Evening, Erev Tov. We're going to continue with the Sefer we're learning on Shemirat Enayim, the concept of guarding our eyes, or the fourth chapter. We're still in the chapters of the Sachar, the merit that one receives while guarding their eyes from looking at inappropriate images, obviously looking at women who are not dressed properly or which arouse improper thoughts. This evening we're going to discuss an interesting concept. The concept stems from the Midrash. The Midrash Rabbah says as follows, and I'll quote: Rav Huna b'shem Rabbi Chiya bar Abba Amar, Sara imenu yarda leMitzrayim v'gadra atzma min ha'irva. Sara imenu, when she traveled to Egypt, she guarded herself to make sure that she was modest. Do we all remember the story? The famous story that Abraham says, "Whoa, hinena yadati ki yefa mareat." Whoa, now I've realized how beautiful you are. So we know that there's many, but Parashat Lech Lecha, right? We know that there's many interpretations. Personally, the interpretation which settles best with me was that Abraham Avinu told her, "Wow, I never saw a woman having to travel, or a woman that has to travel for so much, and you're still beautiful." As we know, it's not like nowadays you just take a plane or a car ride that a person gets tired and weak, although we do. But back in the day, traveling by camel and by donkey in the desert, it wear the person down. So Avraham Avinu, when she was by the river, she was as tzanu as possible. You got a peek at her face, and he said, "Wow, you're still beautiful and gorgeous, even though we've been traveling for so long." That's my most, how do we say, my safest interpretation that I appreciate. But anyways, we see that Sarah Imenu was very diligent to keep her modesty while she was traveling. And because of that, the Midrash tells us, V'nigdiru kol hanashim b'zchuta. All of Egypt, can you imagine? All of Egypt started guarding their modesty because of the merit of Sarah Imenu. Okay? Do you understand that as all of the Jews in Egypt, or even the Goyot in Egypt? It's not that clear, but that's what the Midrash says. By her doing a noble deed of guarding her modesty, others as well did. Let's see the next example. Yosef yarad leMitzrayim v'gadar atzmo min ha'irva. Yosef HaTzadik, he went to Mitzrayim. He guarded himself from involving himself in an inappropriate relationship, as we know with the wife of Potiphar. V'nigdiru Israel b'zchuto. And because of his good and noble deed, his willingness to keep the modesty, therefore Bnei Israel also guarded the modesty and did not slip in illicit and inappropriate relationships. Amar B'chia Barabah, Kedai haya gedor erva be'atzmo shenigalu Israel al yado. And the Midrash ends off that one who guards himself from any of these inappropriate actions or thoughts or anything of the sort, the Geula it merits in coming just because of that individual. So Rav Tzadok Milublin, he explains this Midrash very interestingly. He says, again, al-pi Kabbalah, obviously, that Bnei Israel were specifically sent to exile in Egypt because Egypt was the main part of the world. It was, as we would say nowadays, America, the United States of America. However, it was the metropolitan and the grand force, and was also invested and completely full of desire and impurity and obviously inappropriate relationships. So Rav Tzadok says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent the Jews there to test them, to see would they fall or not. Now we do know that they did slip in other areas. However, to our knowledge, and again according to this Midrash, for the better or for the worse, they did generally and primarily keep the proper laws of erva and sniut as we understand. And therefore, the Jews were exiled. Rav Tzadok says, we learn from this midrash, it wasn't in the Jews' merit. It was in Yosef HaTzaddik's merit. So what we learn from here, we'll say one thing from the Shemi Shmuel, and then we'll finish this off. The Shemi Shmuel says, in the time of Mashiach, Hevle Mashiach, the preceding pains and wars of Mashiach, we know that Mashiach ben Yosef, the descendant of Yosef, is going to win that final war and bring the Messiah. And to what merit is it Yosef? So the Shemi Shmuel explains, based on this midrash, that it's because Yosef guarded himself from immodesty, and he guarded himself from inappropriate, illicit relationships. Therefore, him, not only did he merit for his own self and for his own children, but as well for Bnei Israel to get out and have the exodus of Egypt, but also la'atid lavo for Mashiach, it's going to be in Yosef's merit that the Jewish people will be saved and win that final war. Only if, again, we have to be somewhat in the direction of Shemirat Enayim and Shemirat Habrit, guarding our eyes and guarding our Brit Milah. The Tarat HaKodesh, to sum it up, brings it out very strongly from this midrash. He says, Pasuk in Iyov says, Beshach Enayim Yoshia Yimalet Enaki. One whose eyes are down, one who looks down, Yimalet Enaki, he will be delivered even if he's not innocent. So what does that have to do with one another? And he asks, and so he answers as follows. He says, one who guards their eyes. By looking down, you're guarding your eyes. My brother recently told me, he says, there's two things you have to do when you're walking in the street. He said, you either look up or you either look down. Don't look straight in front. Straight in front, there's many ta'avot, there's many desires, there's many issues. Now obviously when you're driving the car, you don't look up and you don't look down. But in most scenarios, whenever you're around people and you're able to not look in front, you either look down or you look up. You look down to be humbled, you look up to try to connect yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but don't look straight in front of you. Iyov, the Pasuk in Iyov says, by one looking down, the Tarat HaKodesh explains, by one looking down, he is now giving the merit and helping those who are undeserving of being saved and delivered to also have that merit. And we learned that straight from the Midrash, that by Yosef and by Sarah doing something great, their merit not only was for them, but it was for future generations. And this is what the Ramchal, I'm just quoting based on what the Sefer is telling us, the Ramchal says the same thing, that a person has to understand that their actions, just as we understand our positive actions have a major impact on the world and on the Jewish population worldwide for the benefit, from the concept of Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze Lazeh, just as much we have to understand that by us, lo alenu, if somebody does something inappropriate, a transgression, something which is wrong, also they are able to affect in a negative way the world and the worldwide Jewish population. B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will get into our minds during Elul to remind us, not only is it for us and for our descendants and for all of the merits we've spoken about, but also for the merit that B'ezrat Hashem, as Chachamim tells us, the Midrash tells us, that by us guarding our eyes, we hasten the Mashiach, we hasten the final redemption, and B'ezrat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring it as quick as possible. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.